transposition of the great arteries. We had no idea with my pregnancy. I had 5 ultrasounds, never was detected. Well, when he was born blue waist up, and they automatically took him from me. And I was supposed to have my tubes tied, but the doctor came in and said, you probably don't want to have that done because we don't know what's, wrong with him or blah, blah, blah. So they rushed him. I got to see him for probably about, 15 minutes, babe?
Mm-hmm.
And then they rushed him to New Orleans. They came to us. There was 3 hospitals. I said, whatever's the best. I don't care where it's at. I was like, Boston, I think Dallas, and New Orleans. I was like, okay, whatever it is. So New Orleans was the deal. So they rushed him. My husband, my husband went down there, followed the ambulance down there. At the meantime, we had Christian, which just was starting kindergarten, and then I had Trinity, which was in 5th grade. And he got down there. They had to do, what was it, a balloon on him, babe? I think so, huh? To mix
They
the
had
blood.
to put a hole in his heart
So
to mix the blood.
Would mix.
The blue and red and the blue.
Yeah, or they're opposite. He was born opposite. It's one of the major surgeries on a heart condition that you can have. It's one of the longest surgeries. But the doctors came in and told us he had it done. You only can live, in the 70s, they would die within 15 days, like they were dead. And then in the 80s, they discovered, I guess, a surgery or whatever that would fix it. So you only can live 15 days. Well, when they came in, he was 8 days old, and they said, I got to go up there. The doctor released me like the next day to the hospital because I just couldn't handle it. I was like, I've got to go be with my baby. So I went up there, but they ended up doing his surgery when he was 8 days old, and they were like, I'm optimistic. 95% of the babies live, he'll do great. Well, they came out after 8 hours and went to my mother-in-law and wanted to know. Well, they came out and said everything was fine.
Mm-hmm.
And then they went back in. They came out again. They went to my mother-in-law, and they were like, do they have any more children? And my mother-in-law didn't tell us this until like a few minutes later, and they came and said he probably won't make it. We put him on a machine called ECMO machine. He only could live 5 days on that machine. And
His heart had failed.
Yeah, his heart had completely failed 15 minutes after surgery. So we were just stunned. I mean, he was supposed to be okay. Everything was supposed to be fine. So 3 days, as he was on the ECMO machine, the machine that he only can live 5 days, he started hemorrhaging. So they had to take him off of the machine that was going to keep him alive. And they came in and said, I'm optimistic. I think he'll be okay. So they took him off the machine. I didn't even go visit him. I couldn't because the machine that he was on, all of his blood, his chest was open. It would come out of this. It would go in this big, huge machine. I wouldn't even go see him. My mother-in-law and him went in there. But as soon as he came out, he went in there, looked at him, and came out and bawling and crying. I knew I couldn't handle it. So after we got the machine, and we went in there, and then just things after, he was in the hospital for 3 months. It was a phone call in the middle of the night. We had to live in New Orleans. I had to have my cousins to take care of my children, and I was torn apart between, I had to be with the baby, but I also needed to be with my children, too. So it was an ordeal with being able to be with my kid that just started kindergarten, and then have to, be with the one to be there for the baby, So it was a lot of things, but every 5 days or something, we would get a phone call in the middle of the night. He's not doing good. His kidneys have failed. This has happened. That has happened. It was always something that was always bad news. But prior to this, me and Jason were not Christians, and that was a way that God had woken us up with the miracle of our child to change our lives, and He has done a lot. Like my husband now is a prison minister and street minister, but before then, that we weren't on no good road at all. But it was always one of the nurses punctured his lung while he was in the hospital. I went in there to go visit him. He was having air. He was intubated. Air was coming out, and I was like, this is not right. And they had a whole bunch of nurses and stuff around. I was like, this is not right. This is not right, my son. And I ran out and grabbed Jason. I was like, something is wrong with our son. Something's wrong. Jason gets in there, call the doctor, call the doctor. The doctor said if I wasn't in here 5 minutes earlier, your son would have been dead. His lung had completely collapsed. She had suctioned him too far down and collapsed his lung. They didn't even pick it up. I don't know anything medical, but I did. But by the grace of God, his kidneys failed. He had to be put on dialysis. It had just been everything possible when they say surgery, this can happen. Everything happened, even death. He died 3 times. It was just everything. Then after my son exactly 3 years later, my daddy had a massive heart attack, a widowmaker. They came in and told us, my daddy has a 5% chance of living. He probably won't make it at all. And we were just really praying and praying and praying and praying. And then my parents weren't Christians either, just praying and praying and praying and praying. And God had used me and Jason in our situation with Jaden to be able to make decisions medically for my dad. Like they wanted to put a trach, and they wanted to put a trach in Jaden, and we prayed about it, we went and investigated it, and Jaden did not have a trach. They wanted to do that. My mom was about to sign the paper. I said, do not allow Daddy to have a trach. Guess what? My dad did not have to have a trach. So it was, and my dad is healed. His heart is like 45% now. I mean, he's totally, completely healed. God has just healed him. But it was just so ironic that our story, God can use our story 3 years later down the road, and I didn't know I was going to go through such a dramatic thing with my dad and you know, be able to use. So it just all has worked out. God has just been so good to all of us. We are just so blessed and blessed to have him with us. And God is good. He's been very good.